Hi everyone and welcome to Fan Commentaries. Now let's start off right from the major complaint of this episode. A lot of people online have pointed out an obvious flaw in this entire story where Devon's father is trying to find a permanent job for him to work hard, to get responsibilities, which is great. But the problem is they can't tell that he's a ranger right now. Everyone, like Collector Shuki had mentioned, like, well, why doesn't the commander give him some sort of position so that they can use that as a cover? Now, I had a couple of logical ways to explain why this wouldn't really work. Now, I'm not saying the complaints are not valid. They totally are. The thing is that Devon's father doesn't like the whole battle force system because the building is basically a target. It has a Morph X tower on it, and the first thing, he didn't even want his son to go into the building at all. So I'm thinking if the commander did offer him a job, and it would probably be something really boring and generic like, Zoe's old job, he wouldn't trust him to be there because out of safety, he would be like, "Oh, I don't want my son to work there." I think that's the logical reason why Commander Shaw did not suggest a job out there. Although this is going to be a running problem that's going to go to an impasse eventually, which, it kind of feels like the West and his father's thing. They're kind of similar idea. This is Ben and Betty's father, which answers a lot of questions and sets up a lot of things in the future. First thing is that he's the general, so Commander Shaw has to listen to his orders, and it answers why Ben and Betty are in Battle Force and not like thrown away to something else because they shouldn't be there. But again, at the same time, Ben and Betty, right here, they're showing that they can program a robot of some degree, and for the most part, they do good jobs. They in previous episodes they had that stunning thing. If it just worked properly, it would have been a fine device. So it's not like they're not qualified. It's just they screw up a lot. I do like this too because one of the few things that Power Rangers doesn't really bring up often is that the aftermath of a Zord fight, and there would logically be giant pieces of robotic parts and or organic parts, depending on the monster type, that would be left in the city after they blow up. It's not going to be clean and safe, so it does answer and show us like the other aspects of like what the Rangers have to deal with that we most likely think of like what goes on behind the scenes. And of course, everyone thought Devon looked like Mario. It's an obvious thing. What Commander Shaw could do, though, is if he doesn't work at Grid Battle Force as a logical way, then she could technically get him a job somewhere else, which is civilian related, and to simply tell the commander, "Yeah, I'm working here," and cover him. The problem is, what if the father does attempt to go to this place and Devon's not there? That's another problem they could run into. So I'm not sure how they would handle this situation because right now, Devon is just in in this really bad spot where he wants to tell him, like, who would not want to tell their parents that I became a ranger, I'm saving lives, but it's dangerous, and he's going to be scared out of his mind that, my son is doing this and this crazy job. It was also a pretty cool way to use this Sentai footage in the episode. I really liked this bonding moment with Devon and his father. It's the one thing that Power Rangers usually lacks is the whole parenting thing. Which is I want to say one positive thing toward Go Busters, and ironically, this is the aspect of the season I didn't really like, and which is why I never cared for Go Busters, the parent secrecy idea story where, their parents were taken to the other dimension many, many years before they became Rangers, and it was this whole mystery. But without the parents there, and then even though they had backstory, it just really never became attached to them. So the one good thing about Beast Morphers using that story plot is that they're actually using all, like, every ranger and character is getting parents, which again is going to be used most likely in a setup in a future episode where the rangers parents and or Ben and Betty's father will be taken captive, and they'll probably be a main target in a future episode. If you look real closely, they forgot to put in Blaze's Keyblade effect. At least we now know that there's a nice, cool hangar bay that they can use. And this was a really interesting way to set up the next robot buddy in the season. And we find out that Nate has been building, robots in the past. And, probably, maybe it was a test robot, and that's where the other ones had come from. But of course, we'll get revisited in the later of the season. I like how Blaze like even points out Devon's not there, kind of just mess with the Rangers, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take any little advantage that I can and try to get you mad, and so that you can screw up even more. If you pay attention during the morph, you'll notice that the Rangers' arms will bob back and forth. They actually repeat the footage. They didn't record enough material for it to last as long. Although I'm still confused why he said again, because Devon did leave in order to meet the general in the beginning of the episode, but he said he was on his lunch break, so he wouldn't like really need to have told him that he was going on an emergency. It was his lunch break, so technically this should be just the first time. Now this I will complain about because this is just a bunch of really light metal poles, and the Rangers should not be pinned under this. It should have been concrete and other things. Yeah, it's like, Devin, don't fall for that. You fell for that in the first episode. Now, the one thing I don't like though is that now Ravi overheats and he's like he has to cool off, but I don't see him sweating at all. He needs to be, sprayed down a little bit in order to, show that. I do like this idea where Skrull is able to tap into all the cameras throughout the city, which now the Rangers have to be very careful with this problem now because, at any point in time they could find out where they are. Maybe if they have to do a hiding mission where they have to transport something, it's going to make it very difficult for them in the future to deal with Skrull being one step ahead of them. I mean, this is what I've always wanted from a villain to actually take a tactical advantage without them realizing it. Because thanks to this screw up, they took some Morphex, and now we have a stable supply of it, which they can use later on. Now, this could be a red herring. I'm not going to trust it right now, but Commander Shaw's communicator is green. Now, fans of Go Busters will know that there is a green Zord in the season, which it's possible that Commander Shaw could control that Zord in the future. But again, we're not sure on what they'll do. They might do that. They might not do it at all. Now, of course, there's another little bit of a complaint that you can give the show is that Devon going into the Grid Battle Force van. But in this case, it's okay because remember, Devon and his father, they're the mayor. So Sudsy might think, oh, well, either they know Grid Battle Force or he's like, he's rich. So it's an okay, thing. I think it was a little foolish for Devon's father to actually do this because, again, he is the mayor and he is a pretty high profile target that Blaze or the monsters could attack. And we have to always have that cliche where no one moves out of the way whenever something approaches them, especially when something's rolling towards someone they can't simply jump left or right. This does feel very much like that West episode in Time Force, and it must really pain Devon that he can't tell him. It's probably one of the worst things a Ranger has to deal with is secret identity. I mean, I can imagine the MMPR Rangers. They were the very first Rangers on the planet, well, in story wise, but they couldn't tell no one. Their parents, their brother, sister, cousins, whatever, relatives. They couldn't I saved the day. I did all this. It was just probably the most difficult thing to deal with, especially when it was screwing with their schoolwork. I always felt, very bad for the Rangers when they have to hide their secret identity under these circumstances. What I also love that thanks to Evox infiltrating the computer systems in the pilot, he must have taken data, which gives an explanation of why there's these different type of upgraded robots, and especially this one because this looks like the Racer Zord, and it gives a little simple explanation of why they have similarities. Now, this thing I found very confusing in the Go Busters footage of why Beast Morphers changed it. What happened in the original episode is that they couldn't defeat the shield, and so Red had the idea of supercharging or overloading the Zord's power output so that they can try to punch through and get through the shield, but it had to take a while to charge up. But for whatever reason, Beast Morphers changed this to rebooting. So if you pay attention, it says main engine output on the vehicle. I don't really understand why they changed that because there was not really anything bad about it. There was no reason to really change it. I mean, in the Japanese footage, he was risking his life, but at the same time, it's like there's no much of a big problem. I never understood why they changed it. But then the worst thing is that they never digitally changed the screen so that it actually said rebooting and covering up the words main engine. If you listen closely, Smash actually says, "Don't worry, Darren." That's a dialogue mistake. Either he mispronounced it by mistake, or maybe at some point, Devon's name was supposed to be Darren. Rebooting would not be interrupted like that if it was a charged up power. I do like that they did change the output indicator on the screen over there, but they still forgot to change the word Anitron. Now they have access to Evox's technology or Scrozzle's technology, and they can try to figure out what way they can use it, which hopefully this will give Nate an idea on how to combine all the Zords into one thing. Although this can also bite them in the butt later because, this enemy robot can actually probably reactivate itself and might attack this storage hangar. It also might house some of the base code for Evox where Nate might be able to use that in order to reverse Blaze and Roxy's condition. Because anything that's built by Scrozzle, I'm assuming, is infused by Evox's programming code. I like how Commander Shore doesn't even react toward this because she's probably just seen so many times Ben and Betty doing things. She just does not care anymore. You know, hopefully one day that he can finally tell him, or maybe there's a circumstance that will, he'll force be able to do it.